fuck? Oh, man. Oh, what's this going down over here in this little corner? I got some shit moving. Oh. Hey. Hey. Yeah, look at this shit. I got all sorts of stuff changing around. So, got some upgrades and shit going on. Anyway, guys. Oh, god damn it. You see this in the corner? The top corner? We got one of my things just... See, it's this, but OBS, you're some OBS, dude, you're retarded sometimes. I had to spend like 30 minutes doing it. I'm not even going to worry about it. It's not even my concern. My concern, well, you can see it on the screen right there. But that's my concern. Populism today. Anyway, before we begin on this conversation, though, I am going to smoke some weed. Because what else am I going to do in order to keep myself in the proper state of mind? Oh, whoa. Do I want to remove scene 2? No. Thank you. All right. So, this has been on my mind lately, the idea of populism. Because I've had this conversation with a couple friends before. I've thought about this myself even for a while now. And it's something I think that is contentious among people, among different people. And I really honestly do think this stems over due to the fact that people just don't understand labeling and labels. And honestly, that's a fundamental problem. And I think, which is why at the end of this video, it's really not going to mean much. I'm just going to come out up front and say this video is probably not going to mean anything at the end of the day. Why? Because again, people don't understand labels, and at the end of the day, they're just gonna, whatever idea they got, they will, or whatever they think an idea is, or whatever title of like a philosophy or an idea is, they'll just insert their own meaning behind that. So, in essence, this is me just essentially supporting my idea and philosophy of what populism is, because I don't think everyone's going to agree on this idea. I've had arguments about this shit about people, so I mean this is a very contentious thing, and it's something that I just think about often, and it's something that I think should be addressed. Just a video, not towards anyone at all, honestly. It's just, it's just my way of getting my thoughts out on this whole issue. So, well, before we begin, though, I just loaded up the bowl. And we're going to make sure it is beautifully smoked, because that's the only way we got to do it. Smoke it beautifully. I mean, look. I'm smoking a fat joint right now. I got to get the bong, in there somehow, what I mean? I'm roasting this joint. I gotta roast, my legalized tobacco in my bowl, too, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? So, anyway, to begin this, though, we will be, of course, just looking into, you can see my tabs up here. And by the way, there's probably color differentiations, like... What happened to Kyle, man? What happened to Kyle? What happened, dude? He's blue. He's blue. And his shirt's yellow. So, I don't know what's up with that. I'm gonna fix that. But there's not much I could do about it, at least right now. So, enjoy it. Anyway. Let me just smoke this bowl and we'll just get right started with it, man. Because I think this is, something we should definitely discuss. But actually, let me just put myself back up. Get myself back up on there. I don't want to be in that corner quite yet. Do you hear it? That's the flame. and we're going to use the flame to smoke the herb. Woo. Damn, son. Damn. Quality toke. Quality toke. Get a little drink to curb some of that cough. Anyway, so I think we should just begin with the most simplest of the questions. What is populism? So I decided, let's just pull up the wiki. Now, I actually have a few wikis. We're going to be Wikipedia the show for a little bit. So, populism is a range of political approaches that deliberately appeal to, quote, the people, often juxtaposing this group against the, quote, elite, where there is no single definition of the term, which developed in the 19th century has been used to means of various things since that time. That's just a broad general idea. Of course, this goes into it, but I'm going to do that. I don't need a wiki to do that for me. But overall, this is what populism is. I mean, because what it is essentially a philosophy, or it's essentially a collection of philosophies or ideologies that are appeal to the overall broad people, essentially. And this doesn't often have to juxtapose against the elite. But generally, populist ideas, just by its nature, happens to juxtapose against the elite. And we'll get into examples later. But there's no single definition of the term, which, oh, I already said that. But, you know, there is no single definition. And many things that I've been hearing recently is that populism is a far-right authoritarian ideology. And that's just simply not true. It just isn't. Well, I should correct myself. It's not entirely true. It's only half true. Because, I mean, you can even see right here, there's a right-wing populism portal and there's a left-wing populism portal. And I clicked on those. And the first image for a left-wing populism happens to show up as Bernie Sanders. And there's other images. Oscar Lafontaine, I guess. This dude, Pablo Iglesias. So it's showing various different examples of populist left leaders right there. I would also put Jeremy Corbyn under there as well, amongst Ocasio-Cortez and you know, just various other different populist people that have branched off. You know, at least in the United States, for popularity under this type of ideology. And also down here, it's subcategories. There's Bolivarianism, left-wing populism, U.S. So there's, you know, there's different examples that will lead you into this idea. So what this specifically is going into is a political ideology that combines left-wing politics and populist rhetoric and themes. The rhetoric of left-wing populists often consists of anti-elite sentiments opposing to the establishment and speaking for the, quote, common people. The important themes for left-wing populists, well, we can get into that. But it also brought in the right-wing populism. It didn't actually give any direct people specifically besides this guy. And that's about it. But it shows other examples of right-wing populist ideas, including Alternative for Germany or Alternative for Deutschland. There's also other well, you know, there's there's parties down here. Related portals. There's Trump, Realtors. There's various different, at least populist right-wing parties within the United States. Not the United States, but I mean, yeah, the entire you know, world. At least these various different examples here. We got like National Party of Ireland. There's Republican Party also says factions, which I would say is accurate, considering that there's, you know, a variety of different groups within the Republican Party that all have different ideas of how the Republican Party should be. So, you know, like there's libertarians, there's the paleo conservatives, which is a more they're kind of like a more traditionalist style where they are anti-war, and something I think which is a populist idea, being anti-war, at least in the United States, because I think there's been a rise in conservatives that are anti-war, and also they're traditionally on the left, who are generally very anti-war. So I think this is something that is a populist idea, as an example at least. But I wanted to get into the specifics about the populist right and left, and mainly about how the key difference between the two, because I would say that one would be slightly more authoritarian than the other, which I would agree with, but how that generally is really kind of varies. And you know, I'm just gonna you know, get this video going to kind of let them give an idea. And warning, this guy is also blue as fuck. This guy is gonna be very, very blue. See, even Bane and Trump, instead of the great orange hope, we got the great blue hope. But yeah, so we'll just let me kind of get into it, and we'll just kind of break it down.
In the darkest nightmare.
Oh, I should probably get my earbuds in for this. That is very important. I need to hear this. And also, let's get a new screen going up so y'all can see it better. There we go.
Of his harshest critics, Donald Trump is the second coming of Hitler.
We should look at Adolf Hitler in 1929.
The number of prominent people comparing you to Adolf Hitler is actually growing by the day.
Wait, no. He's a mashup of Venezuela's Chavez, Italy's Berlusconi, and Turkey's Erdogan. Actually, scratch that. He's Bane from Batman.
We are transferring power and giving it back to you, the people.
I mean, they're just making the example of different populist leaders and I guess a movie character. And he looks really CGI now that he looks really blue. Like, he didn't look CGI initially, but now that he's blue, he really looks CGI. Oh, God. Anyway, besides that point, here we go.
Are we really living in an authoritarian dystopian nightmare world? Or is that an exaggeration?
So, that's actually a good question. And no, we're not. Look, are we really living in an authoritarian dystopian nightmare world, or is it an exaggeration? And it's an exaggeration, because Trump is just merely a symptom of the problem. So so we'll be getting into more about him specifically, but let's just get into the question about currently just overall the broad aspect of the administration and the current government right now. Are we living in an authoritarian dystopian nightmare? Well, no. To an extent. Are we because specifically of Trump? No. Is our government been authoritarian and in a way against its citizens and cracks down on them harshly, and has broken its own constitution against the will of its own people and amongst other people of other nations? Yes, very much so. I don't think we need examples of this, like the endless wars, the exploitation of natural resources around the world, the outsourcing of jobs that has fucked over American jobs. Just we can go down this list, man. So Trump isn't specific to that. He didn't cause any of it. He's not the source of all these problems. He's just a symptom of the greater problem. So just because of him, no, we're not. The mere fact of why he got elected does tie into populism. However, I think there's a major key thing that people seem to leave out about him, though. And it's because he's a faux populist. So what's a faux populist? So a faux populist is somebody who will use the rhetoric of populism, but don't actually mean it. That's where the faux comes in. Like faux fur or something like that. It's F-A-U-X, faux. So it's fake. So he doesn't actually mean it. So what do I mean? Well, he consistently talked about how in the campaign, during his campaign at least, how we should get out of the wars, how we should invest more into our social security programs, and how we should be looking out at our people more. However, we've seen that with these recent trade deals that he's gotten us into, or at least with renegotiation of these deals, we have seen that a lot of other different jobs have been outsourced, while at the same time, the industries that he did, quote, protect, they, while did get a boost in jobs and a boost in their, fields of, getting jobs and of their economy, it drastically had negative effects on other parts of our own economy and different sectors of the private sector. So he gave a few crumbs to other sectors, and then at the same time fucked over and outsourced others. So he's not necessarily doing that big of a great job. And another thing will be the whole quote-unquote immigration crisis. This is stems into an example of populism from the right wing, because he's using the rhetoric of immigration to bolster up the right-wing base, which is a populist idea to them, which is a right-wing populist idea, advocating for a strong border and kind of anyone who's illegal, which I'm not necessarily against, myself at least, personally. But that is one of their right-wing populist ideas that stems from a lot of various different right-wing ideologies. And Trump goes right into it. And this is something that the GOP has done all the time. So just because Trump's been saying it doesn't really make any difference. It's just that he, with his charisma and how he's able to shoot from the hip and just go off the cuff and no fucks given, say whatever he goddamn pleases, he's able to win over a lot of people because he seems like he's a genuine actor in that sense. Even though we can tell, at least for example for immigration, that he just doesn't really give that much of a shit. Or else we would have had a plan by now when it came to immigration. But no, he wants to use the rhetoric, the populist rhetoric of, quote, build the wall and bolster up more support and just create more of an argument within their own base against, the opposition side. Which, again, is an example of, I would say, faux populism, because he doesn't actually mean it. If he actually meant he wanted to go after immigration, I would say that, he would at least listen to counter proposals and different other ideas on how to go about border security, but he just doesn't want to do that. He just wants to build his wall, or at least use the rhetoric, I want to build the wall, instead of actually doing anything about it. So that's the key difference between someone like Bernie Sanders, for example, or, Ocasio-Cortez or whoever else, who would be, at least for the left's example, to Trump. Trump doesn't really mean his populist rhetoric, while these type of characters do. So, I mean, we didn't even get into any of the video. We just kind of stemmed into that very first question. But, I think it is an important question to, answer, because we definitely aren't. Most definitely not. But let's kind of get further into this video, because I know they'll our unfortunately unnaturally blue friend here will he'll kind of get into more about just this overall.
The one is a fictional supervillain,
but they all have, at least with authoritarian populism, and asking the question if Trump is, which again I don't think he is. I already said that I think he's a faux populist who is just continuing the bidding of the establishment while just using the rhetoric of populism to continue getting the support, so his own base doesn't notice that he's not an actual populist. But anyway, that's just besides the point.
At least one thing in common. All could be described as populist authoritarians. According to the political scientists Pippa Norris and Ronald Inglehart, this type of leader combines two big ideas. The first is populism. Populists often claim that they alone represent ordinary people, present themselves as outsiders challenging corrupt elites, maintain direct links with their followers through rallies, TV, social media, and interpret election results as permission to govern as they wish, even if that means disregarding minority rights and the separation of government power.
That's the part I disagree with, at least when it comes to populism. Because populism doesn't specifically have to, quote-unquote, disregard minority rights. Because, again, at least when it comes to the populist left, this is something that a lot of them usually advocate about. And on the right, sure. Which, I guess for this video, they're kind of talking more specifically about right-wing populism. But it's not made clear. Which, again, is why I'm kind of doing this video. Because I've noticed about, how one-sided this whole argument about what populism is, and it is frustrating to me because while we're living in an age that sure is a little bit disconcerting considering who we have in the administration and considering what's going on, but a lot of these issues have been around. It's just because one figure has bolstered it all up, or at least brought a lot of different issues to the light, or at least more into the light, doesn't really necessarily mean that this specific character, had anything to do with it.
And the separation of government powers. The second is authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism will probably stem more into those issues.
Authoritarians often implement tough security measures against threats from outsiders, promote a nativist brand of nationalism, demonstrate little tolerance of multiculturalism, and exercise a concentrated form of power involving strong, charismatic leadership.
Now, that I, for the most part, agree with. Depending on the authoritarian regime itself, sometimes they might be okay with other cultures as long as they are okay with it. So, there will be different, leaders that would be more open to ideas that are just more aligned with theirs, or at least cultures are more aligned with theirs, that they'll be tolerant of. But if there's too much of a differentiations, then there's an intolerance of it. So I think that's the only thing I kind of have an issue with. But overall, I mean, it's not necessarily wrong. Though, of course, authoritarianism branches off way more than just this, which I actually kind of pulled that up on the side as well, because I think it's kind of important to see what more about what authoritarianism is. So let's get that screen going on, because I don't think we need to just not have me involved in this one. But so what it says is authoritarianism is a form of government characterized by strong central power and limited political freedoms. Individual freedoms are subordinate to the state, and there is no constitutional accountability under authoritarian regime. Which sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any contention against this, because that's essentially what authoritarianism is that there is a very strong centralized authoritarian power that limits any political freedom for any other idea, especially opposition ideas, and any individual freedoms that aren't aligned towards the state are monitored, and anything that isn't aligned towards the state will be cracked down on, essentially. So that's, to me, essentially the rundown of authoritarianism. So now I think it's also important to see what just the opposite is, libertarianism. Just to kind of get an idea, of the two, so we can understand, one compared to the other. And this one is also a very peculiar one, because there's different ideas of libertarianism, and there's also different ideas of what it actually is like when it comes to a political theory, because there's right-wing libertarianism, like in the U.S. as a form of libertarianism, or laissez-faire style capitalistic philosophies, which is mentioned in here, which, like anarcho-capitalism is an example of that, but not talking about that specifically. We're just talking about this, just it in itself. So libertarianism is a collection of political philosophies and movements that uphold liberty as a core principle. Libertarians seek to maximize political freedom and autonomy, emphasizing freedom of choice, voluntary association, and individual judgment. So, yep, that's about right. I mean, also goes on to say that libertarians share skepticism of authority and state power, which is essentially the one of the core fundamentals of libertarianism. I would say is to having at least some form of skepticism of authority and state power, and which is wrong. I think people should have at least some form of skepticism for their state and authority, even if it's for them. Because there's always probably going to be some malicious intent that happens. But that's just besides the point. But, so, now that we know these two differences, between authoritarianism and libertarianism, what's the key, what makes a populist authoritarian? Well, I think this is more seen through where we can see more of it through history more so than of today. Now, I would say that examples of movements that would be like authoritarian left, or not authoritarian left, authoritarian, populist right, would be, I mean, it's hard to even really say, at least for the United States, but, I mean, I guess you could make an argument for, alternative for Germany, or, for these other different movements that might. I mean, here, let's just look up right here. It might have. I saw something here. Oh, that's historical. Current. Oh, here we go. Non-exhaustive list of example states currently or frequently characterized as authoritarian. Oh, okay. Well, here's examples of modern ones. So, People's Republic of China. Well, that's left-wing authoritarianism. Yeah. I mean, all of these are just strictly authoritarian. I mean, there's none that aren't even really populist here, I would say. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to even really dictate. But, I mean, I'm sure people can point out for examples. I should probably get rid of these now. I don't really need them anymore. But, poor Kyle. He's so blue. But anyway, I'll just scratch over that part. But I know Kyle did make a good point that I wanted to make into here about just more about the sense of populism and especially key differentiations between the left and the right, which also I have plenty of examples of this and as to why there are, and most of these are mainly examples of left populist ideas, which is primarily what I want to make examples of, because the main argument I get is that yes, Trump is a quote populist, and yes, he is authoritarian, and the populism on the right is authoritarian leaning. Sure, we can make the case for this, but at the same time, as well, there is populism on the left. And this is kind of the main case I just want to make. Not necessarily that, yes, there's populism on the right. I think everyone knows this. I mean, especially now at this point, because people keep making this argument. I mean, authoritarianism with Trump in the middle there. I mean, just going to, look down here and see random, well, these are all just random recommends for me, so, god damn it, it's not even giving me. Here, I'll just go on YouTube really quick. We don't even really need this video anymore, so. Populism. Alright, let's just see what we got. I wanted to play this video, but the History Channel will destroy me, so no thank you. Populism is reshaping our world. What is populism? And who's Donald Trump of the Philippines? Gives me an idea what that could be about. Populism debate. What's next for the populist movement? Of a different lens, and the thumbnails are important here. Where next for the populist movement, and we got Trump on the face of it? Gee, that isn't stemmed towards one side. Same with this one, the rise of populism, a different lens. I would say that would be a great opportunity to talk about left-wing populism, but nope. From Donald Trump to Pauline Hanson, populism explained. See, even this video, this one looked like it was fine, but then I went into it, and it just ended up not being that way. And populism to say, ooh, well, here's a good one. I didn't even save this. I didn't even see this one. I'll actually, we'll check this out and look at it together. Left for Europe 2018. So, I mean, there's a lot of different, videos that really make a case that populism is more on the right, not the left. And that just frustrates me, dude, because that's just simply not 100% accurate. Anyway, well, let's check out this video real quick. See what we'll see what this video says.
Democrats must save capitalism.
They're doing this video, aren't they?
Democrats suffer from a painfully common misperception that they're the party of the economic elite, and it's not entirely false. Democrats have shown exceedingly little concern for the problem.
Not entirely false. I'll say that's party of the economic elite. Not entirely false. I'll say that is 100% true, which is, I think, is what he was trying to say. That it's not entirely wrong that people say that. I think that is entirely 100% correct that people say that. It's not just partially correct or part wrong or whatever.
Of crony capitalism for the growing concentrations of economic power at the top. The white working class is convinced that the Democratic Party is on the other side of cultural and economic conflicts. Democrats can dismiss the anger of this group, or they can harness that ire for their own benefit and the good of the country. Populism is a much derided word these days, but it's also part of an honorable American political tradition, a strain of rhetoric deployed by the likes of Thomas Jefferson and Franklin Roosevelt.
Yes. Wow. Okay, I'm already liking this video. He just pointed out a perfect, absolutely perfect example of a populist leftist, FDR. He was 100% a populist. He wouldn't have been elected 4 times if he wasn't. Like, I think just, like, this is a perfect example, and I've actually tried to make this argument, and, and to some, they're saying no, he's not, because the right-wing movements were actually populist. It's like, wait, what? That makes no sense. Like, FDR was just inherently a lot more popular at this time. Yes, there was, of course, a right-wing movement in the United States at the time that were looking towards, the National Socialist Party of Germany, when Hitler was taking his rise, and sought to, look at their ideas because of the Great Depression, because of what was going on within the economic system, which is why populist characters from the right and the left come out of the woodworks talking about policies that the plurality of the people want to see achieved. Now, these plurality of people all stem from different political ideologies and philosophies, and a lot of them from the left and a lot of them from the right. But for the most part, there's a broad consensus on various different issues, and then there's a lot of different sub-issues that, that are populist left and then our populist right. FDR came from the populist left side. And this is a key thing that really just frustrates me when people say, or at least people on the left will make the argument that he wasn't a populist left but progressive. Well, what do you think progressivism is? Like, progressivism is just another way, at least for me, saying populist leftist. Because, I mean, a lot of what, at least the populist left rhetoric implies is, progressive towards the future to make, the country bigger, which is generally what progressivism means. So, I mean, while my fellow lefts who would say that FDR isn't a populist but progressive, I would say they're not entirely wrong. However, he is whoa, almost dropped my bonk. But he is a populist leftist, though. I mean, a lot of the case of why he won was because he was advocating for a New Deal where, everyone was able to, where essentially he was advocating for people to have a home and people to have a job and a wage where they can, live and have a healthcare system to where, they aren't going to die because it's a medical problem that they get, in their life. like, he was advocating for a lot of these different policies, and he was also advocating for public infrastructure works, for public job works. I mean, these were very populist left ideas, and it's why he fucking won. So, like, you know, and yeah, you know, there are problems about FDR. There's the Japanese internment camps, you know, there's also, you know, there was, you know, various different things that were going on in Latin America, you know, that he was secretly pushing for, kind of, you know, dipping the United States into more, you know, of a pluralistic side. You know, there are there's problems with him. You know, I'm not going to deny that. But to say that he isn't a populist leftist just because like it doesn't tie into the narrative that the populist right or is what populism is just wrong. FDR is a populist leftist, and this is a key thing that, you know, I think a lot of people on the left tend to miss. And this is a good fucking video. I'm glad, because if it wasn't for this being pointed out, I would have gotten on this rant, dude. Because, I mean, FDR is just a perfect example, at least in the history. Also, I would say his predecessor and his family, Teddy Roosevelt, also was populist left to some extent. You know, and you even mentioned, John Adams, I think. You know, there's other characters, you know, in the past that were, at least in United States politics, who were a little left-leaning. And at the same time, there was right-leaning populists in this country that happened to take control. I would say Reagan would be a populist right-winger at the time. Still is to a lot of people. I would say that Bush coming out with his compassionate conservatism rhetoric, coming out and rebranding a populist idea, or at least rebranding traditional conservatism to a more populist rhetoric, would be another way. You know, saying, you know, he could have been a populist right-winger. I mean, considering also that he had major support after 9/11, you know, he had to have some, you know, at that point, you know, he kind of became populist just by the virtue that everyone supported him at that point. So, I mean, you know, you can make arguments for populists on both sides of the political spectrum, which honestly is the main case I'm trying to make here.
Democrat.
Let's finish this video, see what else it might say. And then we'll go into this and check out some more examples of the left, of, at least for today, of populist leftism for right now. But let's see what Kyle, hold on before I go full screen. Let's see what Kyle, my boy, may have to say about this. Wait, hold up. You can get rid of that now. Oh shit, it's still there. It looks that's still there, is it? God damn it. Oh shit. Well, sweet giggity biggity. I think we're stuck with the face of FDR now, guys. Well, God damn it. I think we're just going to have to listen to Kyle instead of looking at him. Damn, I wanted you guys to see him. It's so blue.
Because the reality is, when you give many
fucking
people
loud
on the right, regular people on the right, the option of populist left, they go, I'm not sure I'm against that. So, I mean, Bernie Sanders, for example, is the most liked politician in the country. 61% of the American people like him. That means he's getting a lot of people who would self-describe as conservative to like him. You know, he won all the primaries and caucuses in the Midwest, whether it was Kentucky or like places like that. Bernie Sanders won, and he won overwhelmingly. And what was an interesting fact in the exit polls was that when you talk to people who self-described as conservative, even people who self-described as very conservative, they said, yeah, I voted for Bernie. Now, you might say, whoa, hold on now, but it is just a fact that Hillary Clinton is more conservative than Bernie Sanders. That's true. But the reality is most people don't look at politics in a label sense. So they don't categorize things as, okay, what is libertarian versus what is progressive versus what is conservative. They're just like, okay, let me listen to the people who are talking and figure out who I think is for me and who's genuine and who's authentic.
Which is why Bernie is popular. Now, that's kind of a very simple way to put it, but I mean, it's why. I mean, when people look at Bernie and he just, goes off on his little, let's just listen to a speech of his. Let's just find something to Bernie and just listen to just one random thing of his recently. Let's just go to his page. Let me go back to the other scene, see if it fixed it. No, FDR's still there. Well, god damn it, dude. What the fuck? I gotta fix OBS, dude. It's broken. Alright, well, you'll be stuck looking at me now. You'll be looking at my beautiful husky face. Man, his fucking channel doesn't really got much for his stuff. Yeah, actually, let's just look at his response to the State of the Union. That was recent. Well, listen to it, I guess.
President Trump's billionaire friends, the truth is they have never, ever had it so good. But for the middle class and for the working families of our country, the truth is that the economy is not so great. Over the last year, for example, real inflation accounted for wages for the average American worker is up by all of 1.2%, just $9.11 a week. In fact, real wages for that same worker, that average American worker, are lower today than they were in 1973. Let me repeat that. The average American worker, after adjusting for inflation, is earning less today than he or she did 46 years ago, despite huge increases in productivity. Sadly, millions of American workers are now forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills and to keep their heads above water economically.
So that was just a little clip, just a little segment of what of the response, and he's talking about substantive, factual information that matter to the fucking people. If they want, to try to find at least, when it comes to, trying to find politicians calling out the issues that the people are noticing. And that's just a little clip, of just some various different policies about, productivity and wages and etc. But that's the reason why Bernie is popular, because he just talks about actual issues and that people are trying to advocate for. Now, I have my problems with these different politicians, with Bernie or even with Gabbard or with or Andrew Yang even, or with all of these different like Ilhan Omar or Ocasio-Cortez. Like there's problems I have with these candidates, yes, but at the same time, I can still agree where I agree with them because they're talking populist left ideas that the polarity of people on the left generally agree to. So that's the main thing I'm trying to get at here, is that populism isn't just something you see on the right. It's something you can also find on the left as well, because populism isn't specific to any ideology. It literally means a variety of different ideologies and philosophies. It's just what happens to be popular amongst the people. So, for example, like in Brazil, fascism is pretty much taken over there. But you want to know why? It's because a lot of people voted in for the same motherfucker who's instilling it, Jair Bolsonaro. A lot of people voted him in because he was at least espousing populist rhetoric against the broken system that Brazilians were suffering under. So there are examples of right-wing populism, of course, but again, of course, we can go back to left-wing examples. One is frozen on my screen, but I mean, there's a variety of different examples you can go to that also show left-wing populism as well. And for example, what are some actual issues here? Like, for example, I'll say universal health care, a populist left idea. Ending the wars, populist. I'll just say this is actually a populist idea because, like I said earlier, there are people who are quote paleo-conservatives, or also people who are libertarians as well, who are very anti-war, like the Ron Paul slash Rand Paul's crowd, where they are just vehemently against the wars, and also I think surprisingly enough, people like Tucker Carlson are also against the wars as well, at least to some extent. So there is, some rhetoric to be had on the right where they're also anti-war. So anti-war is just a broad, to a whole broad aspect, populist. So like some other left-wing ideas would be like gun regulation. That's a populist left idea, though I think that's just a populist idea overall because over 90% of Americans want universal background checks on guns. So if that's not a populist idea, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. So, and also this whole 70% marginal tax rate idea, I actually did pull some articles on this. And I accidentally clicked out of the oh, wait, no, I didn't. It's right here. And it shows that, and so this poll, and actually, it's by Business Insider, too. And it says nearly half of Americans support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's 70% marginal tax rate idea. And 39% of Republicans, 47% of independents, and 73% of Democrats support the proposal. So so this is a great example of a populist left idea. So, of course, Republicans are probably not aligned, at least not as aligned towards that idea. Though I think if you were to inform them on specifically what that actual idea is, they'll come to support it. So it seems like there is a decent chunk of Republicans that do actually support the idea. And 47% of independents, that's a good chunk, and 73% Democrats. So the plurality of people on the left in the United States come from the Democrats and also the independents. So if you put those two together, looks to be very much a populist left idea. And I mean also Ilhan Omar, she was even went further and was like, you know what, fuck that 70% tax rate. How about we suggest a 90% tax rate? Because back in the 70s during Eisenhower's administration, and I think, or at least around that time, I think also before and after his administration as well, we had 90% marginal tax rates in this country. So she was actually making a historic example as to why we should probably do that, and as to why we suggested it. So it's not a fringe crazy idea to think about. So while I don't know what the polls are to that idea, overall, I support that idea. When I heard Ocasio-Cortez's 70% marginal tax rate idea, I even said, it's like, the fuck? That's kind of pussy. Why not go 90%? I literally, that was my first reaction. So, Ilhan Omar's proposal was even better in my opinion, but that's personally just me. But here's another populist left idea: climate change. And this is also another idea that's starting to become globally populist, or at least nationally populist, just on overall, because I found out on these polls that there's a poll that Americans are alarmed by climate change doubled in just 5 years. So, unfortunately, we can't. Hold on, let me see if we can actually see them. Nope, we're still frozen on FDR. We're still frozen on FDR's goddamn face, man. Man, it's really nice if we could see these. All right. So, more than 1,000 adults across the United States were asked about their beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors towards climate change. The answer were then to classify respondents in 6 groups, from dismissive or least worried about climate change to alarmed for the most worried. Those who deemed dismissive of global warming represented 9% of the respondents, a drop of 5 points compared to 2013. So, in 2013, 14% of people thought very dismissive of global warming. And that's dropped by 5 points. So, while that doesn't really stem about the popularity of combating climate change, it at least shows that people are starting to not be dismissive towards this idea. And then I found another one that said, I should probably not get out of these and just put these articles down below too. Fuck. Well, you know what? Hold up. You see my tabs up there. You see them. Those are what they are. I'm sure you can try to find them that way. I don't know. They're just right, they're right above FDR's beautiful fucking face, frozen on my screen. God damn it, dude. I'm just going to stop worrying about it now. Anyway, so it says an increase in natural disasters, change of minds on climate change. So, let me try to, all right, here we go. About as many as 71% said the weather they experience daily in their own areas have influenced their thinking about climate change and science. So, 71% of people, because of just the basic weather they experience on a daily basis, because of the drastic changes that have been happening over time, have changed their way about what they think about climate change science on overall perspective. And the share of Americans said they think climate change is changing as held is roughly steady over the last year. About 7 in 10 Americans think climate change is happening. Among those, 60% say climate change is caused mostly or entirely by humans, and another 28% thinks it is about equal mix of human activities and natural changes. So more and more, the idea of that man is causing climate change and we should probably revert our impacts on it is starting to rise. So another populist idea is climate change. And with the whole universal health care plan, which is a populist-left idea, 70% of Americans support this idea. And there's also another one I found specifically to California. That's a EUHC 4CA poll, which I have no idea what the fuck that acronym means, that shows 61% of Californians support tax increases for single payer. So if there was to be state-operated universal health care, Californians are okay with having increased taxes just for the mere virtue so they can have universal health care so everyone is covered. So it's to the point where universal health care is such a popular idea and is a non-debatable, by the way, that even Californians, at least, are looking at this and saying, I don't give a fuck if my taxes have to get increased. Everyone should be covered. Period. That's just how it should be. I mean, to say that these aren't populist left ideas is a little ludicrous. Because, my bad. Because these are different ideas that are and do and have stemmed from the left. And these are ideas that, are populist. And it doesn't stem just from the right. Like, I mean, we can, like I said before, make examples of populism on the right. But, this video is mainly just trying to show examples of populism on the left. And, I think the main issue I have with is just mainly, because Kyle was even saying it in his video earlier, about the whole thing about labels. And I even mentioned it earlier before we even started the fucking video. Well, I guess in the beginning of the video. Is that populism is just a fucking label. That's what it is. And, and while these ideas are populist, like universal health care, trying to deal with climate change, gun control regulations, ending the wars, etc., etc., etc. The word populist is just a fucking label. And should not negate or bolster what an idea is. Like, these ideas is what actually matters, not whether they're populist or not. Because there's ideas that aren't populist, like, for example, the death penalty. In the United States, it's still a popular idea to have the death penalty. Now, I've grown more and more against that idea. So and that's not a popular idea to generally have in the United States, at least just for right now. I mean, of course, over time, if pushing the argument against the capital punishment, you can you know, have that idea become more populist in nature, to become, to instead be for the death penalty, but against it. But that's why but even though one idea is better, the populist idea, at least in this case, isn't. And you can make examples of populist ideas or movements that aren't good for specific regions, like I made for Brazil earlier, or even with the Philippines, with Rodrigo Duterte. So, you know, like, at the end of the day, populism really doesn't mean shit. It's the ideas that really do mean something. And that's the key thing. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. You know, like, I'm trying to get at two things. One, populism isn't just something on the right, but also on the left. There is populist leftism just as much as there is popular rightism, or whatever the right equivalent of that is called. But rightism, I guess, is what it is. But anyway, there is just as much of populism as there is on the left and the right, because populism isn't exclusive to the right or the left. And also, the second thing I'm getting at is that populism is just a label. And like all labels, they don't mean anything at the end of the day, because most people don't really understand labels, and most people don't give a shit about them. I mean, I don't at the end of the day. Like, I mean, this video is a total contradiction to that, considering I just made a whole video dedicating its time to explaining the meaning of populism. So, I mean, like, I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, populism is something that most people don't generally understand. And what people should try to push is for, instead, just the actual policies and ideas. That's why usually whenever I'm doing my streams, I always am just talking about ideas and philosophies, not necessarily the labels of such. Like, whenever I even do mention labels, I always just usually simply call myself post-populist, populist-left, or libertarian left. Just very simplistic, broad labels, because, I don't even know what the fuck to call myself, because labels are meaningless. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I guess, it pretty much said all I can at least say. I didn't really get too much into Kyle's video specifically. Unfortunately, I can't see him, but, I might as well, while I finish my last bowl, have a little conclusion on this idea with some other insight he has. And by the way, his video was from 2017, but I still think that it's still something that's merited, for at least this conversation, even from last year when he made this video, because I still think it's just as meaningful as today as it was then.
And guess what? When you give people the option of populist left, many people, even on the right, go, yeah, I think I like that. So even if some people on the right may be somewhat socially conservative, they're willing to accept, left-wing politicians who would argue, you know what, on social issues, I want people to live and let live. You make your own choices. It's really none of the government's business. And they'll accept that, because you could even make a conservative argument for that. You could say, hey, I'm just in favor of small government when it comes to social issues. So that's also a conservative position. People might say, well, a conservative position on social issues is to be strict on social issues and family values, and the government should get involved in your life and make decisions for women, or whatever the case is. But no, you can get conservatives on your side if you say, look, it's just all about small government. You live and let live. You make your own decisions. I don't want the government button in your life unless it's an absolute necessity. But the key thing that really gets so many people with us is economic populism. So when you talk about Medicare for all, well, first of all, Medicare itself has a 77% popularity rating, one of the most popular government programs in the country. The only one that beats it is Social Security. But Medicare for all polls at 60% favorability.
Which, again, bumped up to 70% now. Again, from a year ago.
overwhelming majority, and there's very few people even arguing for it. Imagine if people were arguing for it and making the case. And even there are more.
And there is. Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard. I think we should know Jenna before he dropped out. Andrew Yang. Even fucking Elizabeth Warren. There are people trying to advocate for it. So, you know, populist left idea pushed by different people right now. Again, like, you can agree or disagree with these different types of people, but if we're going to get universal health care, we're going to have to look at the people actually advocating for that. And the people who are advocating for that are people on the populist left side. So the Bernie Sanders, the Ocasio-Cortezes, the Tulsi Gabbards, the Andrew Yangs, and even though he's not in any office right now, I know, but I mean, he's still this underdog that came out of nowhere. No one knew about him. He went on Joe Rogan recently. He's starting to, get his social media attention, starting to get a little bit of notoriety around people. So, I mean, it's worth mentioning. Just these different, and there's just all these different politicians coming out of the woodworks. I mean, even people in Congress and Senate, too, even. Not too much in Senate, but in Congress right now. Like with Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Lee Carter, I think, is another one. Ro Khanna is another one, I think. Rahul Grava, another one. There's a good chunk of them in there. I mean, and with all of them, I have various different minor disagreements and specific disagreements, but they all have general consensus on a very different, broad aspect of issues, and universal health care is one of them. So that's just another populist left idea that 70% of Americans agree with. And just imagine if even people on the right were starting to say that. Like, what if, suddenly, I don't know, who's a Republican that who vaguely might come out for it? I don't know. I'm trying to think of one. I can't. You know what? I don't know. Let's just say just some random Republican that came out for universal health care. Imagine that. Imagine how the game will change for universal health care, becoming more of a conversation in our politics to get pushed as a system for our healthcare system. Just one Republican coming out and saying, in Senate or Congress, hey, I agree with this, suddenly changes the game of the conversation, does it? Suddenly, now you got someone spewing populist right type of rhetoric on a populist idea, but people, at least even on the populist left, should have at least be able to agree that, hey, this guy's advocating for universal health care. I'm advocating for universal health care. Let's work on a compromise on this common solution. Because there's different ways you can do a universal health care system, but the fact that we need a universal health care system is something we can't debate. And that's a fucking debate in this country. Just think about that. That's something that people argue about all the time. And it's something that's argued in our politics all the time in our government. Imagine if we actually spent our time on other issues. It might be the same bureaucratic, nonsensical bullshit that goes on and on and on. But fuck it. At least we're not having to worry about a universal health care system being implemented so millions of people aren't uninsured and 38 to 45,000 people aren't dying every fucking year because they don't have universal health care, and there are people who aren't going bankrupt because of medical debt, which is why 70% of Americans support universal health care. It's because of shit like that. It's because they're in an economic system that has fucked them. And most people generally are looking for populist ideas, and there's a lot of them are from the right, and a lot of them are from the left, which is why populism isn't exclusive to just on the right. It just so happened that in 2016, populism on the right-wing side, or at least right-leaning populism, happened to win because you're against a Republican-like, neoliberal, corporatist, establishment shill witch for a fucking candidate in 2016. And sure, she got the, quote, popular vote, but not where it count. She didn't take into consideration the Electoral College, which, in order to play this current game, you got to consider. And to consider that, you got to consider the Rust Belt. She didn't. She didn't talk about the ideas of going into the Rust Belt and talking about the issues that most affected the working class in those areas. That's why she lost, because she didn't advocate for populist ideas that fucking people wanted to help them get back into a better state in life. So they aren't in poverty, so they're, you know, so they can have a better job, so they can have a fucking house and a car to get to work, you know, and able to pay the bills without having to worry getting a loan, so they're going to be in debt. And yet, Hillary, Queen Hillary, never ever fucking mentioned that. And people wonder why she lost. It's because at least Donald Trump was at least making the rhetoric of a populist. So at least they gave the appeal for people to vote for him. Which, enough people in the Rust Belt, enough votes in those areas, voted for him. Which was enough to make it count towards the Electoral College, which is why we got him in the first place. So, if you want to look at how to win, look at his rhetoric. Look at how he operates. Not necessarily how he structures, you know, the system and how he actually operates, but in his rhetoric and in his charisma and how he gets things done, essentially, if you want to call it that. Not the specifics of what he's doing, but, you know, the details of how he does it. That's what we need to look at. Because when it comes to the whole idea of at least getting the rhetoric down for populism, Donald Trump has got it fucking nailed. Nailed to a T. And for people on the left, in order to get a lot of these ideas pushed and to get to a lot of these different ideas, at least in the works that are being discussed, you got to look at Trump's rhetoric, baby. And you got to not be Trump and literally copy it, but understand that he does whatever the fuck he does, and he doesn't give a shit, and he doesn't back down, and he is aggressive, and he is hard, and he goes at it. That's what we need. That's what the populist left needs to do, and needs to own that. Trump owns his shit. Doesn't mean anything. It's just rhetoric, but he still owns it. Because I think we can notice when there's a difference between telemarketer Trump to off-the-cuff Trump. And those are the key difference, and I think that also shows that he doesn't mean it. If he really was going to just shoot off the cuff all the time, he wouldn't do fucking teleprompters even for speeches.
Or Republicans that support Medicare for all then don't support it. So the point I'm trying to get at here is the potency of our ideas on the populist left. It's even more powerful than we imagined. Because you're not just going to get action.
And in order to do that, like I said, you have to look at the rhetoric of how Trump pushes populism, and that's how you have to do it. If you want to have these left ideas that are popular amongst leftists and progressives, or the populist left, aka progressives, then you need to be potent and be hardline and aggressive with your rhetoric as well. You can't come out with an intellectual mind about it and talk about labels and philosophy in that nature. You have to discuss the details of those philosophies and discuss the details and specifics of the policies. Because no one's going to listen if you're talking about progressivism or conservatism or whatever, because then they're just going to fill up whatever meaning those labels have in their head. They don't give a fuck whether a policy or whether these policies are progressive or not. They just care if it is good for them. And it just so happens for at least the middle, lower and working classes, most policies just happen to be on the left. and populist left ideas, or progressive ideas, or whatever you want to call it. But it just so happens that the majority of ideas happen to be on that spectrum. And, you know, for a lot of different people, maybe, you know, their ideas are more right-leaning. And you know what? That's fine. You know, like, that's why there's a populist right as well. Because there's a polarity of people who are a little bit more right-leaning thinking, or more right-leaning in their way of thinking. And, you know, there's a whole broad idea to them of what, you know, are good right-wing policies. Which is why there's a right-wing populism and a left-wing populism. Anyway, I'm going to, I think I have now been able to say all I can say now. And I've gone on for quite a while on this one fucking thing. How long am I going on for? Jesus Christ, an hour and 10 minutes. Fuck me. Alright, well, fuck. You know what? I got one more bowl to smoke, so I think I'll let Kyle say one more point, and I'll then take us out. So, yeah. I guess we can have FDR be the face of Kyle, I guess. I don't know. I don't... How did this happen, dude? How did it, like, freeze on FDR's face? Like, I'm not even... This tab isn't even open anymore. This tab is not open. Like, I'm confused, dude. Whatever. I just don't care anymore. But let's have Kyle have his final word.
Actual unity among people on the left. You're going to get many people in the center and many people on the right to go, you know what? I think they're authentic, I think they're real, and I kind of agree with them. Raising the minimum wage is another issue. 80% of the American people want it. A majority of Republicans want it as well. I'm telling you, you go down the list, free college. That's another one where people on the right go, is that really that crazy when we have an education system where we have, you know, basically free elementary school, free high school? That's what public schools are. Say, hey, why not have that option for college too, so we don't have massive student loan debt for no reason? So when we make the argument and we're unapologetic about it and we have a vision, people come to our side, which is why I was told something yesterday, which really brightened my day, which is that Secular Talk's very own Lilith Penn, turns out her mother, who has been a Republican most of her life, if not all of her life, she has been listening to some stuff on Justice Democrats, and Lilith said she came up to her and said, hey, this Justice Democrats thing, I kind of like it. How do I sign up? That's exactly what we're doing this about, man. Look, it's not just us preaching to our own little bubble, people who already agree with us, who say, oh, our idea is great. Yeah, our ideas are great. Aren't they great? Yeah, they're great. No, it's about branching out and building a winning coalition to really try to implement this vision for the future. Because we're not kidding when we say it's a vision that the overwhelming majority of the American people agree with. We just haven't had a Democratic Party that really represents those ideas, and we haven't had the best messengers for those ideas. Well, now that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to have people who rise up and they're unapologetic in saying, we're for Medicare for all. We want a single-payer healthcare system so we catch up to the rest of the modern world. In fact, we want to be #1 in healthcare. We want to give everybody healthcare, and we want to pay less and have better outcomes. We can do that. That can be done. Hey, we want jobs. We want an infrastructure bill. We want a new deal and create millions of jobs in green technology, for example. This is what we're about. We want to have free college. We want to make the minimum wage a living wage and tie it to inflation. You know.
We get the point. Anyway, so, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of what populism is about right there. Kind of run down a little layman term there. But, yeah. A very long, hour-long video on populism. There you go, guys. Hoping you like my little scrolls that I got going down here. Fucking cuck. You know you want to. Oh, yeah, you should also follow me on Twitter, you degenerates. Yeah. Yeah, let that scroll. Yeah. But, yeah. I gotta work on this page a little bit. I gotta, like, change some of the coloring. I was just doing this quick, because it is really late as fucking night. So, anyway, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. And let me know your thoughts on populism down below. Like, I'll be interested to see what comments people have. But, yeah. Pretty thorough, I believe. So, take it at your face value. You could take me out of context, take me in context, do whatever you want. I don't give a fuck. Anyway. It's beginning arc coming at you. Peace the fuck out. don't forget to smoke that weed. Or that, not that legal tobacco, I mean. The legalized, crisp, clean tobacco. Anyway, peace out, everybody. And, of course, I'll see y'all in the next video or the next stream or whatever the fuck have you.